You are probably thinking crypto is a scam right now, or you might have some interest in cryptocurrency. You've probably heard something about it, though. This episode is for you either way. Today, my guest is Camille. He is a dear friend of mine from my days at London Real Academy. He is one of the most savvy and knowledgeable people, um, investors that I know. And you might have seen him on a previous episode of Hot Topics Live podcast. And if you haven't, you should check that out. But if you have, you already know that he knows what he's talking about. So stay tuned. Do not miss anything because this could be a financially life-changing episode for you. We are going to dive deep, get prepared. We're going to be about an hour and get ready to take some notes, like save this episode, share it to people who could benefit, and definitely stay tuned until the end because if you don't know, I do something very special for you at the end. Okay, so if you're not watching this episode live, or whether you are, you should set your notification so you know when I come live so you can join the conversation. So that said, I'm Kia. Let's get into it. Hi. Welcome back to the podcast, Camille. I'm super excited for today.
Well, me too. Thank you, Kia, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here always.
I am pumped because you know why? I have been hearing all this talk, like all this shade thrown at cryptocurrency and digital assets and all of that. And I don't understand it. And I feel like people are afraid of it. People hear misinformation. People jump to conclusions and jump to judgments about it. And they have really no idea. And a lot of that is like people mock what they don't understand, or they're ignorant in the way of they don't have the knowledge. So
Mm-hmm.
they don't understand it. So that they're afraid of it. Right. So today, my goal is for us to help people break through that barrier and just maybe learn something that can help them in their financial future. What do you think?
Okay, let's try. Let's try to give that to your audience. Yeah. Not a small feat.
All right. So where do you want to start? Like you're the expert.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell me where you want to start.
Okay, so if I'm talking to someone that has never really invested on their own and they're trying to take that first step, the first thing is to not focus on the vehicle but focus on you. Why do you want to invest at this stage in your life? How much risk are you willing to take? How much money are you willing to allocate to it, right? And here the options are pretty much on a scale. You have to decide where you are on that scale. The variables are going to be depending on how much capital you have and what your goals are. You might have to take more risk, right? So typically, if you want high returns, you need to take a lot of risk. If you are comfortable with moderate returns, you can then reduce the risk. And as a personal investor, as an individual, risk doesn't have the same definition for us as it does to your banker, right? If you talk to your banker about portfolios they can offer to you, when they talk about risk, typically they're talking about their assessment models for different assets. And to them, risk is volatility. So anything that has a lot of volatility would be considered risky, right? Which means if you hold an asset through their portfolio that suddenly starts performing really well, 10, 20, 30% a year, if it's unusual for that asset, they will consider it very volatile and they will sell it on the fear that it might, to mitigate the risk, just in case it comes back down just as fast as it went up. So when you invest individually, your notion of risk is different. You have a certain amount of capital, a time horizon, and you're willing to hold a position for X amount of years. Typically, I would look at years. If you try to get rich quick, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy. All right, I'm still talking from a regular apartment, and I've been doing it for over 5 years. So if you have a long-term horizon, however, like 5, 10 plus years, you want to decide the type of vehicle you want to park your money in, right? And typically, you'd like to make multiples on your money. Anything else you can do with a traditional setup. And so what the only area I have identified myself, unless you're very, very knowledgeable in some niche of some industry where you have privileged knowledge about a great opportunity and you have somehow access to it, the only thing I see accessible for the public at large is with crypto. And so this is what we're going to talk about today. And crypto, like any other area of our economic life, is something we need to understand if we want to get value out of it for ourselves. Right. And so that's what we're going to try to do today. I hope I can give you a little bit of an overview, the lay of the land, so to speak. So then you can decide if you'd like to participate in the adventure and to which extent.
I think that's a great start because I know that there's a lot of fear. And if we can just help people understand a little bit, then they can make this choice for themselves. And one of the things that you said that was so important to me and that helped me in my understanding when I was getting involved with this is that this isn't a get rich quick scheme. This is a long-term thing. Like, you need to also determine how much money you feel comfortable putting at risk, because there is risk, but there's risk in the stock market too. Right? And
Absolutely.
there's risk in any investment that you make. So you have to determine personally, where you're comfortable and also how much you want to put into that. And then know that we're not, trying to do a quick trade and make a bunch of money tomorrow. We are trying to invest wisely over a long period of time, minimum 5 years. And guess what? I've been doing this 5 years already. And I'm still not there, but I'm very positive of where we'll be in 10 years. So in that 5 years, we've gone from kind of the wild, wild west of investing and like lots of, we had the basic structure, but we didn't have any like regulation. We didn't have institutions that were buying into this, and which we see with the Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. So like the Black Rocks and the big companies coming in and stuff like that. This was not happening. There's been so many rapid changes in these 5 years, but now there's kind of a shift. So what's your take on that?
This is very true, and this is exactly the type of information I was pointing towards when I said you need to understand the vehicle you invest in. Because if we think about crypto as a whole, it's a very vast world. I don't know the half of it, and nobody does, in truth. So crypto is really very much like the stock market, as you pointed out. It has many different protocols. Think of them as different companies that you can invest in. And each protocol has its own token. That would be the shares that you can invest in. And you need to understand why you're holding such and such shares and not the others. And once you understand that, you understand that, then you need to understand the I would say the platform on which crypto evolves. And indeed, recently, when I say recently, I mean in the past few months, I just that's an interesting comment. And so in the past few months, the legislation has been evolving quite a lot. Last year, if I take the United States alone, last year the Genius Act was passed, which essentially is giving a federal legislative framework to operate with stablecoins. So for those of us out there who don't know the first thing about crypto, there are cryptocurrencies which are privately managed in the sense that they are being issued privately, that are designed to mimic the movement of the currency they are pegged to, right? So there are many stable coins out there. The most prevalent stable coins follow the dollar, meaning that stable coin, typically the two popular ones are USDC and USDT, will always stay close to the value of one USDT for $1. It doesn't have a lot of volatility like Bitcoin does in comparison. Okay, and so the last episode around, we talked a lot about Bitcoin, And the narrative around Bitcoin, the use case is reserve of value, long term. Now, if you buy Bitcoin and you hold it for 10 years, chances are this is going to be your favorite savings account down the line. But there are many other protocols that are trying to serve utility to industries or the public, offer some security, offer privacy while maintaining the decentralized aspect of crypto. And this is where it becomes complicated the first time you look at it, because it's just overwhelming. You have hundreds and hundreds of tokens and companies and people, just individual people, creating these tokens with utility or without utility, by the way. And so you kind of have to understand what you're looking at. And this is exactly what we'll talk a little bit about today. So you kind of understand how a token on a blockchain can be useful to someone or a company. Because I'd like to be able to ask the audience, if they have an idea, they could raise their hand. Who has an idea of what a useful token could be?
Well, let's see. Hold on. If anybody has questions, drop them in the comments, and we will put it up on the screen and we will answer them. If you know the answer to Camille's question, drop it in the comments.
No.
We'll just give that a second. By the way, thank you for your super chats and your very interesting comments. Okay. Anyway, well, it looks like people don't know. So what do you have to say about that?
That you guys are in the right place. Thank you for being here.
Yes.
Okay, so I'll show you one that is one of my favorite, because it's also I consider it to be the less risky, because it has already a lots of favors from the institutions, from the legislative side. It has been struggling with a lawsuit for years. It has won that lawsuit, so it's already classified in many categories in the legislation aspect of it, and in the use case for it. So if I can share my screen for a second, I will present XRP, right? This is not I won't say this is not investment advice. This is not the best token out there necessarily, depending on how you see things, right? But it is a very interesting one, and that will give you an idea of what blockchains enable when used right. Okay, so very quick recap on the history of internet. A very important thing to understand with the internet is, first we have what we had, the concept of Web 1, that's in the 80s, early 90s, where you could only transfer information. You could write something, send it to another computer across the world, they'd be able to read it, right? Machine readable or human readable. That was Web 1. Web 2 is when we were able to interact with the content. So media started to appear, right? In the early 2000s, there was the birth of YouTube and so on. So videos, pictures that you can edit or something, you could actually action things in your web browser. And then came Web 3, which was the internet of commerce. Suddenly the e-shops starting to appear. You had payment rails. You were able to pay over the internet. Nowadays, we do it like it's second nature. But I remember when I was a teenager, my dad asking 10 times if he should put his card details in the form to buy something online. It was very unusual.
I remember that.
Right?
The anxiety was real.
Exactly. And so now we're back at it with Web 4, also known as the Internet of Value. Because with decentralized protocol like Bitcoin, you can now use the internet to transfer value directly, property or royalty rights, represented in the form of a token on a distributed network, meaning that not one person, not one central focal point has control of it and it can change things unilaterally. So the trust factor is established by that decentralization. So we can build on top of that. And this is what XRP, or I should say Ripple Labs is the company, XRP is the token. Ripple Labs has been building a suite of solutions to help the banks tackle liquidity issues when it comes to managing their international transfers and pools of capital. So if we get into it, we're talking about a market of $27 trillion, right? Which we dub here the cost of friction. So if you want to transfer money between, let's say, these four huge financial places, New York, London, Singapore, Tokyo, typically the banks now need 3 to 5 days to clear the settlement. And I think that's actually generous. In most cases, it would be a week, sometimes 2. It depends on the currency you're coming from and the one you're going to. But your customers will not wait 2 weeks. If I buy something, if I'm a business and I buy something, I import something from Brazil, I can't wait 2 weeks for my settlement to clear and then another 3 months for my shipment to come through, because my business would be too slow. And so Brazil could not be a business partner. So the bank will essentially get a first level of confirmations that the different partners they have in the network agree to complete the transaction, in which yours is included. And once the bank receives all these confirmations, which could take, in that case, in real life, 3 to 5 days, they clear out the money for you to be paid. But the banks pay you. Your Brazilian partner's money is still on the way, so they need to advance that capital. Because there is so much friction and it involves many partners in between, it also has a high cost of transaction, high fees, typically at $25 to $50 per transaction. So when you do millions and millions at a time, which they're trying to do, it turns down to be really a fraction of the transaction value. But if you wanted to be able to settle quickly the individual transactions that you receive throughout the day as a bank, these fees would add up very quickly. And so that makes it inefficient for them, because they need to have large pools of capital in different currencies reserved around the world to interact with their different partners. And that turns out to be a 27 trillion pool of capital, where the money is just sitting there to accelerate transactions, but cannot be invested. It cannot generate yield, right? Or if you can, it's going to be very low yield, because this is liquidity the banks need to have access to at any point in time. So it needs to be in liquid assets and very low, very, very little risk. So typically bonds that they can buy and sell to each other very easily. So what I just described is here represented with a little bit more detail, right? You go from currency A to currency B, and in the middle, you can either have this complex system I just described, or now you can also use XRP, where you have a token that has a certain value because it's being held by many people and used by many institutions, that is designed to be extremely rapid, extremely fast, right? It's the 3 to 5 seconds settlement speed. In truth, it's much less than that. This is in case of the network being very heavily congested, but it rarely is. The transaction cost per transaction is fractional, of below 1 cent, really. I think the sign here above 1 cent, below 1 cent, no, the sign is correct, sorry. And it's able to manage a large volume of transactions in very little time, right? 1,500 TPS. Typically, if you look at the networks we use today for payments, like your credit card, you'd be in the range of, I don't want to misquote it, but I think it's 200 to 300 TPS, right? And these are considered to be the best networks for throughputs in terms of payment rails in the world today. And here we are basically having 8 to 10-fold. So the banks are looking at this with a lot of appetite, because now they can keep the liquidity basically in XRP tokens. The XRP token itself can generate yield, and all these fiat reserves they have sitting around the world for a total amount of 27 trillion could be freed to go into investments. Right. So the way it works is you initiate your transaction as a private person or a business. Your fiat currency gets converted to XRP on a digital exchange. The XRP is being transferred to the other side of the world extremely quickly, as we just saw. And then the receiver, your Brazilian partner, will be able to convert that XRP immediately, right? This can all be automated, to Brazilian rails. And the transaction is complete. They have proof of payment. It's been settled on the base layer. So the value has actually moved, and nobody needs to rely on a third party to complete the transaction later on when they've already agreed to pay or to recognize the transaction for their customer. All right. So this is where this is a case of utility, a comprehensive crypto as a service solution for banks, fintechs, and payment providers. Right. So okay, this one is the ad aspect of the show. Right. And for full transparency, I should have said this at the beginning. I'm not affiliated whatsoever with XRP. They don't pay me in any way, shape, or form. I am an investor in XRP, but that's just something I do privately. Right. And so XRP has also, sorry, not XRP, Ripple Labs has also created a token which is a stable coin so that it can live on its ecosystem. You have a very easy way to convert XRP to an equivalent of the dollar while staying on the blockchain, because the dollar is still the currency of choice throughout the world. Right? So they've created RLUSD, that some people pronounce real USD. So some competition there with the Fed. But this means that XRP, between XRP and RLUSD, they have the potential to serve the public as well, because now you can use their payment rail, their very fast and very efficient network, as well for transfers within a same currency zone. Right, so it could be it's a network that could work, for example, behind your MasterCard. And so now the bank wouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 days for the receiving bank to confirm having received the funds. Right. So it's designed also to be fully regulated, as I mentioned earlier. So if you follow financial news, if you're dabbing a little bit into financial tech, you know that CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, are coming. I know a lot of people have strong opinions about it. I do too. The thing is, we don't know which shape they will have exactly today. So whether the institutions won't adopt it or not, XRP or Ripple Labs doesn't have any influence in this. It's just providing the rails to make it work well if we decide to go down that path. And indeed, they have already been studied and being used in some proof of concept workshops with the Eurozone, the dollar. The Japan is already using it in production, essentially, to fluidify the famous carry trade. If you're familiar with this, it's starting to be actually used. So the future would be having a multi-purpose token, and this is the vision that Ripple Labs is putting out there. Right? They haven't executed on these on the first point at least yet, but essentially you could convert anything for value to XRP and transfer it. So you don't have to necessarily just have currency. It could be, as they say here, bond, equity. Right? You could transfer the digital signature for a title of property for anything over the XRP blockchain, right? So that means stock markets on that network could become interoperable much more than they are today, right? Meaning that you don't need necessarily to trade a certain asset on a certain stock exchange. You could basically have it available on any financial marketplace, meaning that you can invest in an American company from the London stock exchange. That would be the future. And the native lending protocol. So I told you, yes, they are working on a way to generate yield for the XRP that is sitting idle, and that's actually very easy to do on a blockchain. Essentially, you with the staking mechanism, and I won't go into the details. We did this a little bit more into the previous time I was on this podcast, but essentially you can have people lend their XRP to the people that run the nodes for the network, and it incentivizes them to secure the network more and more, right? So the more you're trying to generate yield from your XRP by putting it into these protocols, the more secure the network is, and so the value wheel is very positive, right? I can't remember the word now. It's a virtuous circle. Here we are. Right? So this is it, a unified infrastructure where you have Ripple, the company, making sure that everything is done in partnership with institutions, fulfilling the legislation, making sure that it works globally. XRPL, the XRP ledger, that is essentially their blockchain, doing all the operations, making sure that it's the computing power behind it, and XRP, the token, to materialize that value and enable you to transfer it over the internet. Right? And that's it. So yeah, the future is fluid, and I'm invested in it because I think it will be bright too. But we'll see.
I agree with you. I mean, I love that. I love what you showed for XRP, especially because I'm invested in it and it's one of my favorites. And obviously, this is not financial advice. You need to do your own due diligence. And I would suggest looking at who's running the company, look at their top management, investigate those people, see what other things that they've done, see what the company's doing, see what the utility is of the token. I'm in favor of tokens that have utility, right? So, because we know there are some that have none. There's so many. And, I think utility over everything, right? So it matters to me what they're going to be doing and how they're developing it. And you have to do this research. So, number one, do your own research. But I love the process that they're in. And so, what would you say to people who, because Ripple had some trouble a couple years ago, they've had some, and lots of people felt like they lost out, right? And they're kind of nervous about investing in that again. What would you say to those people now, knowing what you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So the two things, utility and out of trouble since the lawsuit is over. These are two very good things for Ripple. Why utility matters as an investor? If you listen to the traditional investors, the Kevin O'Leary's, the Mark Cubans out there, they will tell you the same. They will swear by utility from dawn to dusk. And the reason for that is if you hold something as an asset in your investment that other people need to use, then there will always be someone willing to pay something for it because they need it. Right? So, and what you want ideally is to hold something that a lot of people will want and of which there is a certain level of scarcity. So that's the reason for utility, and this is why we showed this example, but I could have shown a dozen others, right? There are many forms of utility out there. The difference between utility and a commodity is that the utility is being used to produce something. It usually goes through some sort of transformation, while the commodity is something that people desire, but they don't need it. Right? Usually, in terms of asset that you hold for reserve value, I should say, because no, there are commodities that we use, but they don't depend on the effort of others. And so the thing that happens here is that Ripple had this vision from the get-go. They haven't really changed their roadmap since inception. But they ran into some large speed bumps around, what was it, 2017, I believe, is when the lawsuit was slapped on them. So they had a very good financial. The XRP token had a very good price performance, 2015 to 2017. Like some people got really rich off of it. And then it all came crashing down because the SEC decided to slap a lawsuit on them, accusing them of selling a unregistered security, because they would interpret the activity of Ripple in saying that the token value derives from the efforts of the company, and so essentially you're selling shares without selling shares, which is illegal. And that turned into a lawsuit that lasted until 2023 or 2024. I don't remember exactly when it ended, but not that long ago, about a year ago. And And during that time, I started scooping XRP towards the last 6 months of the lawsuit being in effect, because I could see when the judge started to publish like the motions that happened throughout the course of the lawsuit, you could see that they were leaning towards more towards Ripple than towards the SEC. You could see that the arguments were a bit weak, and there was one way of seeing it, which for me was really the high conviction. The way the United States determines if something is a security is using the past case of I've heard the name so many times it's escaped me now. Howdy, something like this. There was a case in the early 20s, I believe, of an orange grove in California where the owner of the grove, and his name was Howie or something like it, right? He sold share. He basically sold participation in his field, and he would redistribute benefits from selling the oranges. Okay, so that was the illegal emission of shares. But in the case of XRP, if you take the parallel with Ripple, then if Ripple was emitting shares that depended on its results, that would be illegal, absolutely. But XRP doesn't represent shares. Ripple could go very high in value because of other services it's selling out there that don't necessarily involve crypto, and XRP would not move. So if we do the comparison, and the way the lawyers argued it is basically saying, well, if you consider that XRP is a security, that's like saying that in the Howie case, the oranges were the security. The oranges were the illegal emission of shares, right? And so if that was the case, then every store in America would have to register with the SEC to sell oranges, right? So I thought this outcome was pretty unlikely, and that's why I kept accumulating the XRP token. And so this is the way I recommend everyone to invest. It's understanding those things, not just looking at charts, understanding the fundamentals. And the same goes with reserve of value tokens like Bitcoin. Understand why it's a reserve of value, where it could go, what's the market for it, is it still a good time to enter? These questions come naturally, and you find the answers for yourself as you have your thought process in order.
I think that's a wonderful explanation and a great place for people to start, because, understanding is the foundation for how you can grow in this space and feel much more comfortable. Because a lot of people hear stuff in the media, they hear sort of like some types of propaganda, and that's all they hear. So to do your own research means that, number one, you're thinking for yourself. Number two, don't just assume that crypto is a scam because you heard it somewhere, right? Like, it's an opportunity. Are there scams in crypto? Absolutely. Oh, yeah. There's tons. There's a lots of danger. And that is why regulation is important, and it's happening. Now, I want you to think with me for a second, right? If this was a passing fad, would they bother to regulate it? And anywhere? Would they care? No. With the advent of CBDCs and these digital currencies and the sort of testing of them in certain countries, I think that we have to be forward thinking. And I think that we have to go, why are they doing that? Why are they building this digital infrastructure? It's been around since 2011, 2012. And why is it continuing to grow when people lose money? There's lawsuits. Why was the Securities and Exchange Commission challenging Ripple? Why were all of these things happening if this isn't something that is slowly becoming a mainstream part of our financial lives? Right? So I do these episodes to try to let people know to at least be open-minded, to give it a shot. And I hear the jokes and the memes about it, right? And I think it's sad because I think it's really shortchanging people. Right. And you're probably thinking, like, what? Like, no, but I still think it's a scam because these people made all this money and they're ripping people off. And yeah, that does happen. But that's why you educate yourself, right? You understand that there's inherent risk. There's inherent risk in the stock market too. You could put your money with a financial advisor and he steals all your money, right? There's Ponzi schemes, there's fraud, but people still invest, right? So, how can we help people move past that fear, Camille, and understand that right now is such a great time to still get knowledgeable and get in the game?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Right now is a perfect time to dip your toe in the pool, and that's what I would do, because it's such a new space. There's plenty of material out there though. If you do just even a YouTube search, you can find other people that will explain to you what's behind such or such token, or how they think about the market as a whole. The problem I have with YouTube is that everybody gets lost in price analysis, right? They pull out the charts, it gives you this expert look very quickly, and that's how you get views. But that's the YouTube game. So what I would say is trying to understand fundamentals, like I just did for Ripple. You can look at other projects you might like and understand why they are a bit different, and why you would like to invest in them. Because it's a decentralized place where it's all about creating a community that want to transact over your protocol and trust it. You need the trust factor. It's really the core of crypto. Then ethos is a big part of the debate. Some chains have a different view than others as to what's important to secure the future. Some will be extremely strong on transparency, other will be very strong on privacy, and for different reasons, for different use cases. So this is where you want to dive a little bit. To take the first step, I'd say try to do your first transaction just to have a feel of how it works. Play with $5, $10. You don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin, XRP token, whatever it is, according to the price. Know that you can buy fragments of it. You can buy as little as $2 of Bitcoin. That transaction can happen. And then you can try to send it to someone else, either someone that has crypto, you want to test the transaction with them, or you create two wallets for yourself, and you transact between one and the other just to see how it works. But that's what I would do, because the thing is this: when you invest, no matter what you invest in, the whole point is to be early. If you come with everybody else, you might make a return, but you have to, it's not going to be a big return, and you still have to get out on time. So be early. It's a much more comfortable position, I can tell you by experience. And so when you will see Apple bringing a crypto wallet natively on your phone, I don't want to say it's too late from day one, but we're close to the end.
That is a very good point. And that illustrates the point I was making too, is that, listen, these things are happening whether you think it's legit or not. And by the time you realize that you missed the opportunity, you missed the opportunity, right? So I'm here just doing my part to be a good person, a good human, and share with you what the opportunity is. So, let's talk a little bit about how digital assets and traditional finance are coming together.
Big point. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, this is a podcast on its own.
We'll have another one and dive deeper, but let's just skim the surface.
So what's happening is, where do we start? Right. Until now, to this day, still is very true. Let's say crypto is its own little island, right? It's self composed of little islands that don't yet talk to each other. Different blockchains don't integrate well with each other. There are efforts being made, but we're not quite there yet. And traditional finance, however, has realized the value they can unlock by leveraging blockchain technologies. And they have understood finally that you don't do a private blockchain. It makes no sense having a private blockchain, because that's like operating on your regular platform. Just you have servers operated by a few other people, but it doesn't bring much added value to the whole thing. So now they are understanding that they have to adopt some of the blockchains, so crypto, that are already out there and that the public is adopting and on which many developers are building. And so if you've been listening to the financial news lately, you probably have heard Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, talk about Ethereum a lot, talking about Bitcoin as an asset that now his team can recommend to their clients. Talk about Solana and maybe a few others. What's happening then is that this traditional finance wants this technology to be recognized as usable by the legislator. And so there is a fast track process going on in Washington, D.C. To get the Clarity Act passed, also dubbed the Digital Infrastructure Bill. And they are working. So here we have the lobbyists for the banks and the lobbyists for crypto trying to collaborate with each other, but very much at odds on some key topics, and trying to come up with a bill that would be satisfying for both sides of the equation, so that now the companies that operate in the US can build on crypto and they know what the playing field is, right? They know which legislator they answer to, which jurisdiction they operate under, what are the rules of the game. Because until this current Trump administration, there was an effective war on crypto, where the companies based in the US or having customers in the US would try to abide by the rules, but when they were even coming to the SEC for consultative with a consultative approach, they would be met with silence. So they would try to move carefully, little by little, and eventually they would receive a lawsuit. They would have to stop operations. It would cost them millions, and many companies went under because of this really nasty way of operating. So that has, and many founders went to prison when nobody lost money. Right. So this was a really serious aggression towards the space, and this is completely shifted. Now the banks are wondering how they can operate with crypto, and the funny thing is they are the scared ones. If you follow the news around the Clarity Act, they are pushing back hard because there was another act passed last year, the Genius Act for the stablecoins. I mentioned it. And that act is essentially allowing crypto firms, so it's an exchange like Crypto.com or Kraken or what's the other one, that's Coinbase. They can offer you yield for your stable coins. So you hold something that is essentially the representation of a dollar, where for if you get a USDC, the USDC Foundation, right, called Consensus, has the equivalent has that dollar in reserve. Otherwise, it cannot create the token. That's what the regulation enforces. So when you get this token, you essentially have a dollar that you can always redeem back to a real dollar if you want to. But the difference is, because the crypto space is operating much faster at a lower cost for financial products, it's able to give you an amazing yield. You can get 4, 5, 6, even 8% yield on your USDC in many occasions. It fluctuates during the year and depending on how the crypto market works. How the crypto market is doing. But I mean, which bank today is giving you 4% or even 3%? Right? If you know one, let me know. Yeah.
Yeah, right. None. And that's part of where the opportunity lies. And that is why these banks are so nervous. And so I can almost see, whereas like behind the scenes, maybe we didn't see, but in the previous administrations, that the banks were like pushing this back, right? Like wanting to hold it back so that they could remain the same, keep the status quo. But the thing is, and say what you want about the current administration and their stance on cryptocurrency, the thing is someone recognizes the potential and the fact that we were being left behind globally in this sort of digital finance restructuring race, if you will. And so that's not a good position to be in. No. So at least now with the changes in regulation, we have an opportunity to move forward and advance in this space and become a leader in this space. And so it's interesting to see how now that the banks are changing, and like even MasterCard and and all of the current things that are happening where this it's being embraced.
Exactly.
And so these are signs, if you will, that you need to get from zero. You need to get from zero and you need to start learning so that you don't miss it. And let me tell you how I felt when I missed the .com era. I was very young, granted, but still, I can remember it. And I remember what opportunity existed when we moved to the internet infrastructure and how everyone was like, or even snail mail to email, right? And everyone was like, ooh, email. That's crazy. Or the internet. And people were so afraid of it. And now we don't even think anything about it. It's just part of our lives. We have all one of these in our it's my phone. All one of these in our these little computers in our hand now that we can access the internet at any time. Now, if you take that mindset and you apply it to cryptocurrency, digital assets, digital finance, then you start to be able to see the bigger picture in the 5-10 year future of where this can be.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to say as well, the banks right now are scared because they cannot compete. They cannot, because they operate on a very old technology. Most people don't know this, but if you look at the current Swift system and the payment rails alongside it, because Swift just sends messages. It's just a standardized way of saying, I'm bank A, and from account XYZ, I'm going to send so much, and acknowledge you acknowledge reception, right? And this is what it does. The thing is, this system is very antiquated, very slow. It was built in the 70s and it has barely evolved since then, right? It's to replace the telex or teletext. I forget how they call it exactly. I don't know if you remember these devices that were like a long ribbon. It would go out like. Don't you remember this?
I do remember
In old
this.
movies, you can
I
see
can
it.
see it in my mind.
Right. So it's basically the digital version of that. And that's it. It hasn't moved since then. So they can compete because these are extremely bulky systems. They need to maintain them running, and it costs a fortune to operate at the speed we operate today. And so that's why the banks need to keep most of the yield towards themselves. They cannot give you 3%, even if they'd love to be able to compete. Right.
Mhm.
So they either adopt these new systems, or they will be made irrelevant slowly, more or less slowly. Right.
Yeah, but they can feel it. And so you do see these changes happening. And I think it's really interesting. So it's really worth, I mean, you can sit and be afraid of AI. You can sit and be afraid of cryptocurrency, but it doesn't change anything about what's happening with it.
Mhm.
Or you can figure out how to bring, how to make it beneficial for you and others, right? How can you use it to help humanity? That's my take. And so knowledge is power. Learn so that you don't get left behind. And so I can tend to be a conspiracy theorist, okay? Side note, a little bit of information about me personally. And so I've been hearing this rumor about how they're planning to do this digital takeover where they're going to force everyone to use digital currency, right? And I'm not saying it's true. No, I'm not saying that that's true. But what if it is and you don't have any digital currency? Just saying. Luck favors the prepared, is all I'm saying. What do you think, Camille?
Yeah, I think they have a vested interest in making us use cryptocurrencies, by mandate, because it's programmable money, right? That's why people that understand what it is are worried about centralized digital bank currency, because then essentially your account would no longer be with a commercial bank. We would all have an account with the central bank on the network that they more or less, yeah, that they would control, because this would be a centralized blockchain. Like, I don't think they will let you and I operate a node for the new digital dollar from our home and decide and help validate the transactions. They will want to retain that control, but they will get all the programmable aspects of that system in hand. And so that means with programmable money, you can, if you're a bit dystopian, and I hate to say it, but George Orwell was not too far off. You could theoretically create a dollar where you say, okay, so these dollars that you receive this month, these ones are only spendable for such type of items or services. These ones will start losing value and dissipate over the course of 6 months. So buy quick. These ones are for tax purposes, so we'll just take them back right away. You can't do anything. This is happening automatically in your bank account, which is no longer your bank account. It's just a window on how much you're worth, but it's being operated at the other end.
I'm not going to deny that that makes me nervous, right? It makes me super nervous to think, but at the same time, it's like, if that's where we're going, that's where we're going. And we have to get knowledgeable and we have to get prepared.
Yeah. And so that's why as well, why I love educating people around this, because whether you invest or not, private cryptocurrencies have a strong position to escape totalitarian government's control, because they are decentralized. The network can be operated from anywhere in the world. The only way you would get rid of a private crypto or privately operated crypto like Bitcoin or Ethereum would be to completely shut off your internet. Or you would have to have an extremely advanced firewall for the whole country. And so then any government that wants to do this has to openly say, we are going to be China on steroids or something like this. You just, you can't do it pretending to do it for the greater good. And in my experience, if we're talking about ethos or politics, depending on how you see things, the only thing that always maintain a bit of freedom throughout history is equilibrium of power. You can't rely on integrity, honesty of institutions. You can with individuals, but with institutions, it just you set yourself up for a big disappointment.
Completely. And so perfectly said. So, oh my God, it's been 53 minutes already, Camille. Where did the time go? Okay, so did we cover everything that you wanted to cover today?
Look, I think we've covered the essentials. I'll just say, if you want to start with crypto, you've never done anything, you can start setting up a MetaMask. Directly in your MetaMask, you don't have to complicate your life with an exchange or anything. You can buy a little bit of crypto, see how it lives in your MetaMask, see how the price changes over time, see how you feel about it. And then eventually you start doing the transfer, for that one time where Cash App doesn't work, you can, pay back that coffee your friend advanced you, sending crypto to their wallet. just get started and you'll see it. It's not as scary as it seems.
I love the fact that it's an option, right? It's not a requirement right now, but it is an option that is expanding. And so that it just gives us another tool in our financial tool belt that helps us to, be more secure in case of any eventuality. Like, I know I feel more confident with my little cold wallet, with my Bitcoin and my favorite coins tucked in there, that I'm not intending to do anything with. I'm just hodling, if you will. Mm-hmm. But I also like the idea that I can, learn about a new token and its utility and decide if that's something that I want to get involved in and support that organization. Does their mission align with my values, which is how I pick my tokens and what their utility is. And so I think it's fun. It's something interesting to learn. There's so much to learn there. And it's easier than ever. Somebody put that in the comments. Yes, I'm going to put it back up. It's easier than ever to learn how to get started, right? There's just
Very much so.
very, very easy. When I got started, you could not Google anything about this. Like if you wanted to know how to get a wallet or to set up MetaMask or to do any of that stuff, there was no information, right? Now you can ask ChatGPT. You can go on Google and Gemini will just tell you if you have that enabled, right? Like there's so much ease in getting started. So, our call to action today, right, is for everyone to learn and get started. Get a hot wallet, which is MetaMask. Get a cold wallet, which Ledger. There's other ones. Pick your favorite, but I have a Ledger, just so you know, a Ledger X. I want to say.
Mhm.
I have two, so I think the last one I bought was a Ledger X. And so start learning and just basically learn how to use them. And if you want some help with that, you should DM me on Instagram, which I'll put all my Instagram information up again. And then, yeah, right there. If you like Camille, you like anything he had to say today, if you missed his presentation, you need to watch this from the beginning. Then definitely drop a comment, share this, subscribe. I love to platform Camille because he's super knowledgeable. And if you watch this episode, you know that. And he's legit. So he'll be back, obviously. Okay. Because I keep doing these episodes to educate you. I'm making a playlist all about DeFi and cryptocurrency. It's probably going to be called digital assets or something like that. And you can watch all of the stuff. Okay. It's coming. I'll be ready by the end of March. Anyway, Camille will be on there. And I hope you'll come back soon, Camille, so we can do another episode and enlighten people more.
I'll be very glad to. Yeah. Let's see. Let's see what's happening in the next few months. I think we're going to have a lot of news.
I think so too. And I can't wait to see what happens. And I'm just going to keep buying XRP. I mean, my whole mindset is like, okay, Bitcoin, cool. Ethereum, cool. But what's next? Right? What's the next opportunity? So I keep my eyes and ears open and I invest where I think there may be some long-term capital gains for me with another asset. So that's my little strategy I just shared with you all. And I hope that helps you. And with that, we're going to wrap it up. Camille, I'm going to put you in the green room and I'll meet you there in a few minutes. And see you soon.
All right. Thank you. Glad to be here again.
Isn't he such a doll? I just love him. He's so knowledgeable. And I have this little group and we meet every couple of weeks and we just support each other through this process because, people think we're crazy, right? You probably thought that when you started watching this and, or when you read the title. And so we support each other through this process, the ups and the downs. And he is so instrumental in how we all stay informed, and he adds so much value to those calls. So I am so happy to share him with all of you. And so if you're still with me, thank you. Go ahead and subscribe and share this, like this, drop me a comment. I read my comments. Sometimes I answer them live. You might have noticed, or you might land up on the screen. And this is the part of the show that I do something special for you because, I'm a coach and I'm all about mindset and positivity, not toxic positivity, but like, you know what I mean, right? I think that goes without saying. So, before I forget, if you like pretty pictures and you're into pinup, you should follow my pinup journey on my Instagram. I am in 11 magazines now. You can buy them. The link is in my bio on Instagram. So if you're into that kind of stuff, then you should definitely check it out. Pretty classy pictures, nothing more than that. Here's all the places you can follow me if you like that. And now settle in because we're going to do a thing. All right. Take a deep breath for me. Okay. Sometimes I like to put my hand on my heart and just center my energy. What I have here in my hand is called Soul Truth. Can you see that? Soul Truth Awareness Cards. I'm going to get a little message for you. Are you into that kind of thing? I mean, it's a spiritual kind of thing. We're open religiously here. Like whatever you believe in, do you, boo. Okay. For me, I'm going to get this for you. And this is going to be a message from, I don't know, your higher self, your God, the universe, your, higher power. I don't know, whatever you believe in. It's all good. So what I'm doing right now, what you hear is I'm shuffling them so that one flies out at random, and that is your message. So I'm not picking your message. It's just, random. If we can get one to come out, we'll see what happens. You guys, I'm thinking about like just putting these on a separate channel because people seem to like these little messages. So if you think that's a good idea, let me know in the comments. And then I'll keep you posted. Also, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you for your subscriptions. Most of you are subscribed that are watching now, and I appreciate you more than you know. Oh my God, today I got my first super chat. Thank you for that. So thank you for watching live and sending me super chats. That's such an amazing thing, right? So here is your message. How can I be more flexible right now? And that might apply to you and your digital assets, okay? And becoming an investor and like at least learning, becoming knowledgeable. You should stay tuned for my little ebook that I'm creating, which is like all of the basics to help someone who's a newbie in this whole space and who's like kind of crypto curious to get involved, okay? So stay tuned. I'm working on it. When it's ready, you can be one of the first people to get it and give me feedback on it. If you go to my Instagram, Hot Topics Live Podcast on Instagram, and you send me a message telling me that you're interested in the ebook, because I get a lot of crazy messages, then I will correspond with you. Or if there's a topic you want me to talk about on Hot Topics Live Podcast with my guests who are coaches, podcast hosts, experts in different fields, I just like talking to people. So if you want us to talk about a topic that you're interested in, and we have talked about some crazy things over the years, honey, let me know. All right, what are you trying to control? So how can I be more flexible right now? And it says, what are you trying to control? Maybe it's time to let go. Let love move through you today and trust the outcome will be for your highest good. Today's soul action, remind yourself all day long that you are safe, that life is happening for you, and that you are not alone. And then maybe go do some yoga, some stretching. I did not make that up. It says it right here. I don't know if you can see that. Okay, well, I tried. Anyway, come back next week. I'm going to have another live episode. I'm going to do, my Dating After Divorce series. I'm going to do a little, maybe 30 minutes live on that. So if you're dating, you might want to come watch that. Otherwise, set your notifications so you know when I come live if you want to watch me live and join the conversation. I love you guys. I'll talk to you next time. Bye for now.